What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Very exciting show today. We have with us Michael Lei, who is a filmmaker of A Taste of Sky, and Claus Meyer, Chef Claus Meyer, who is the subject of A Taste of Sky documentary. And we'll talk about this a little bit. I thought would be the protagonist of this film, yet was very much the guide. And that is a theme throughout that we're going to talk about. Claus, you were very much Obi-Wan Kenobi through this. And I've appreciated the way that Michael took that theme and kind of really ran with that. The guide, the mentor of the hero's journey kind of storytelling was very clear. And there was many guides in this. And I think the relationship between guide, mentor, and mentee was at the forefront of this film. And what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of what's happened with the Melting Pot Foundation, the work that's happened with Gustu. We're going to talk about the film itself and how it really captured the work of taking, Claus Meyer from Noma fame and from the new Scandinavian cuisine movement to Bolivia and Gustu and what that meant for that community and that whole journey. But I want to start with A Taste of Sky itself, the name of the film, and there clearly was, Michael, for you, a storytelling that you wanted to have because altitude kept popping up. And I think a lot of people see the altitude and it wasn't clear. You don't quite understand it, but very much you were setting the scene because Bolivia has, 5 different biospheres, right? So it's very much tied to altitude. It's very much a part of the culture there, a part of the cuisine there, the ingredients. And so wanted to just have you touch on that a little bit, A Taste of Sky. Why was that the name? Why was it important to you for you to set the scene when it came to the altitude?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a fantastic observation. Not everyone gets the connection between the title and Bolivia, just because I think a lot of people know about Bolivia's kind of landscapes, but La Paz is, if not the highest, one of the highest capital cities in the world,
Right.
with, I think, at 13,000 or 15,000 feet at its highest point. So when you get there, you really feel that. You physically feel the altitude kind of getting at you because the air is so thin. But then, as Claus kind of was able to pick up when they were doing research and picking countries for their project, it also gave it a fantastic diversity as a country in terms of its ingredients and what was available. So when we were brainstorming and kicking around titles, we knew it had to be food related, and that's kind of where the taste portion came from. But we also wanted to refer to the physicality of the country and simultaneously the aspirational or more metaphorical quality of the restaurant and the project, which was these students could kind of use food to aspire to somewhere as high as the sky. So it kind of is that double entendre there.
I like that a lot. All right, Klaus, let's start quickly. I want to get to Bolivia as quickly as possible. But we need to get the backstory a little bit. You're at the peak. Noma, best restaurant in the world. According to so many best 50 best restaurants, and a lot of media, a lot of accolades, a lot of attention brought to new Scandinavian food, which I know is an immense struggle and challenge for you. And then you say it didn't fill me up anymore, and you felt the need to leave. And so I was interested in kind of that dynamic. Had you achieved the finite goal of getting it on the map, and you needed to now move to your infinite goal of what Kenzo speaks about? We can change the world through food. So give us a better understanding of kind of the catalyst for moving on from Noma.
Yeah, so Noma and the whole Nordic cuisine movement was never meant to be turned into some sort of short-term branding opportunity for Scandinavia. For us, who launched the concept and the collaborations, we saw it as a chance to learn and a chance to explore our history and our geography, our territory, the terroir, as they say in France, in order to find out if there was some sort of hidden language that could be meaningful in the global choir of flavors and cuisines. And also it was an attempt to reconnect the people in Scandinavia with the land where they live. And all of that got an incredible momentum, and as a culinary expression, it materialized beautifully at Noma and a number of other restaurants. Noma eventually was voted best restaurant in the world. But at that point in time, I saw all kinds of classical commercial structures trying to take the notion as a hostage to benefit their short-term commercial aspirations, and that didn't feel right. And at the same time, I has always been searching for another higher level of meaning and purpose to feel some sort of fulfillment within myself. So when a friend of mine told me that maybe the Nordic Cuisine Manifesto was not about the Nordics, that there was some sort of universal recipe or lesson to be learned or to be understood within it, it gave me goosebumps, and that was also, in addition to the first reflection, the reason why we started looking out for a destination or a location that could be a meaningful, I mean, you could say a kind of a canvas or a test pilot, or we needed somebody somewhere in the world that could potentially benefit from this idea. So we set out to explore if deliciousness, and more specifically the approach we are taking in Denmark and Scandinavia, if that could become an instrument to fight poverty, and that somehow led us towards La Paz and Bolivia.
And so was Bolivia like the fellas at the table were saying, we think Claus just threw a dartboard at a map and ended up with Bolivia? Or give us just a touch on how Bolivia captured your intrigue, your imagination. What was it about the food? And let me say this. What was clear from the film, it was a love story about Bolivia, yet not necessarily about the ingredients. You know, we see some ingredients, we touch on some dishes, yet it's very much a human story and the connection with family and how food brings people together and some of that. So what was it about Bolivia that potentially first attracted you? Maybe anything that you thought you expected to find in Bolivia because of what you saw, quote unquote, on paper, yet when you got there, it was very much a human experience. Give us a little bit of the understanding of Bolivia.
Yeah, let me just, comment on the three men there in the movie. So they do have a point in the throwing of an, what do you call it? What do you call that? The throw what?
Throw
What
a
is the
dart.
wording? A dart.
Yeah.
So of course they underestimated a little bit the process leading to the choice of Bolivia, because we actually did a little bit of a piece of desk research, and we were mapping a number of countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America before ending up with Bolivia. So we did a little bit of analysis before getting there, but it is correct that I had never been in Bolivia. I had no relatives down there. I knew very little about the country, so in that sense, it was a little bit incidental. Where they got it wrong was that I mean, for me, it was not first and foremost some sort of sick man's attempt to prove that he was the mastermind behind everything. It was rather an attempt to explore what good looks like, to do something good or great. What does that look like? And then I just saw an opportunity to up my game by spending hours and money on this idea, hopefully for the benefit of other like-minded people in other industries. I don't think food is the only vehicle for this kind of initiative. That I do think many countries should spend more time on. But the first impression was very negative. I mean, I remember clearly the first week we were there, and we were deeply depressed the first 5 to 6 days, until in the very end we saw a little bit of light. We knew that Bolivia had probably the largest unexplored biological diversity anywhere in the world, but we couldn't really get our hands onto it, because what we found out later was that much of this biodiversity was totally inaccessible. You need to travel 3.5 days, partly on a mule or in a canoe, and across all kinds of dangerous species and snakes and what have you, and maybe even some cannibals to get to those goddamn shoots or fruit from this or that tree that you wanted to. I'm joking a little bit also, but you didn't see an abundance of incredible ingredients in La Paz when we started there. And the other reason why the human or social component ended up being so important is that we underestimated a little bit what the true challenge was, and and um, and how important it was to get the human side right in order to be able to achieve anything with the food. And somehow I believe that Michelangelo and Camilla, who were the two young people running the operation on site, they also, and I think that is a very beautiful part, that they somehow ended up um, emphasizing or prioritizing the whole concept of making these people, their students, grow um, personally, and not just teaching them to cook world-class food. So that became at least as important as teaching them to cook incredible food. So when people came from all over the world to be at Gustu and have a meal, of course they were kind of blown away by the food, but at the same time they had had pretty decent meals in Europe also, or in the US. But truly blew people away was the connection with the chefs and waiters that we gave the opportunity to shine for a little while in that country.
I appreciate that. We'll come back to the human side, the mentorship. Michael, I want to come to you. As Claus was kind of joking there, I was like, yeah, I felt anxiety as I watched film, and being very much a film buff. And I'm always thinking about also the filmmaker, because I see most things in a film in my head. And so I'm like, holy shit, you guys are going up those hills, and I'm thinking that your crew is trying to get to all these remote places, and the logistics, and then you're hunting crocodiles in the middle of the night. Like, talk about that a little bit, because there was clearly, you used a storytelling method that I really like. You slowed us way down. You got very introspective quite a few times. Saw that Kenzo basically didn't have very many scenes where he wasn't in slow motion. And it was very important for you to slow us down, slow motion. Lighting was key. You did a lot with very introspective music. There was bubbling creeks and rustling grass. Very much was trying to get us into those reflective moments. And why was that so important? It was clear it happened a lot, that you needed to go back to that tool again and again, because so many moments, it's easy for us to just skip over and want to go fast and see the next sexy plate of food. You slowed us down. Why was that the way you went about that, especially when we got out into nature, those difficult places to get the good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, Klaus pointed out a pretty funny quality that I kind of forgot, is the difficulty in obtaining a lot of those ingredients. It cannot be stressed enough. I mean, not for us just as filmmakers, but one of the beautiful things that Gustu did is that they actually set up a lot of supply chains to producers and farmers and hunters for the crocodile that weren't available back then. And they were able to not only help these small producers grow, they also were able to introduce the world to more ingredients, or at least Bolivia when they were originally inaccessible. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's kind of like two parts to that question. The first is the stylistic choice of the slow motion. I mean, we started making the film when Jiro came out, but right before Chef's Table came out, and that's become a very popularized tool in the culinary world, I think, when you do food cinema. But I mean, we decided kind of very early on that was an asset we were going to use, because the one thing that was really important to me was process. And I think when you, with the way food is consumed these days, and it's in front of you and you eat it and you consume it. And I mean, the opening kind of speaks to this. There's a very long line that goes from the actual ingredient before it ends up on your plate. So just emphasizing how it's a very arduous, not all things are as arduous as getting the crocodile from the middle of the Amazon to a restaurant, but even here in the US, I think people forget that there's backbreaking work that's involved in getting these things to your plate. And and also in the kitchen where they make it. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of effort by a team to build those dishes, and I think the slow motion thing is very it helps attribute that process that it takes to get from farm to table. And then the sound and stuff. I mean, I'm a narrative filmmaker by heart. Not to say documentarians don't do this, but I've always had a love for sound and sound design. So one of the really fun things making the movie was kind of accentuating the water and the wind and the things, because I think that makes it a much more immersive experience. I mean, the one of the funnest things as a filmmaker is when we were doing our film festival tour, watching it in the theater in a big screen. The opening when you're crocodile hunting is tremendous amount of fun, and then when the gunshot goes off, you can feel the theater jump at the same time. So that was a lot of fun.
Were you not afraid out there, Mike?
We were scared. No,
Yeah.
we were very, very scared. I mean, it's funny. So
What was your chance of dying that night? I mean, was it 1% or 0.5% or what? That was a risk you agreed up.
What were the Vegas odds on you coming?
Yeah, I mean, we were. It was. I mean, the death. I don't know. I mean, I think the thing is that was scarier, not just that night, is that we were like 8 hours by like a boat from the nearest civilization. Not like you were near a town, you were like a village. So the scary thing is, like, I remember at one point, one of our crew members, we were a very small crew, 4 people. One of them cut their finger, and we're like, if that gets infected, one of us has to cut his finger off, or something like that. Because I mean, it is very much very remote, and you're kind of in the middle of nowhere. But I mean, this is a funny thing. I mean, Claus knows the cinematographer I work with, Jeff, and Jeff has gone on to shoot Mexican drug cartels and another documentaries. He was on the front lines of the Ukraine border early last year for another documentary, and he still says to me the most demanding project was that brief. Not to say the most dangerous per se, but the most demanding physically was the Amazon, just because we were a very small crew, and we had to travel many hours by boat just to get to some of those locations. So, I mean,
I'm grateful that you did.
Yeah.
I think this the audience that we have is very interested in that, because there's so many different overlapping storylines, and one of them is how you actually create this film, and so I really appreciate that, because I could sense the challenges that everybody was facing, that Claus and Camilla and their team was facing, to be able to be outsiders and find a way in, the challenges that Maria and Kenzo and everybody was facing to overcome their circumstances, and the challenge that you all overcame to be able to go to Kenzo's family home. And even his mother says, "Oh, I didn't know you were coming to our home," because they're like, no outsiders ever trek their way up here to come to our home, let alone a film crew. So I really appreciate that. It was very much an overcoming of challenges throughout the film. And so I wanted to highlight that for sure. So I want to move to Gustu. So Claus, I want to touch on this. Fine dining. Why fine dining as the vehicle to be able to put the Amazonian food, the Bolivian food, onto a pedestal? Why was that the vehicle? Because you mentioned that Noma and the challenges that you saw with Noma and the movement, and how the movement potentially became commercialized. You had been down that path before, and you chose a fine dining restaurant again. So I'm interested in, did you learn and understood how to do it differently? Was that why the school connected to it, kept it tethered and grounded? Give us a little understanding of why fine dining and the Gusto restaurant itself was the vehicle to be able to kind of elevate the Bolivian food story.
So a few years before the opening of the launch of the Bolivian project, we had been working in prisons in Denmark, and come to understand what a powerful message it is to bring somebody who is deprived from access to resources that other people take for granted. What a powerful idea it is to share with them that together in a not too far away from here, we are able to create some of the greatest food in the world. So it was a matter of telling them that they have the right, if not the obligation, to dream big. and we wanted to do everything we could to allocate the resources they would need themselves, these Bolivian youngsters, to create with our help behind the scenes a great restaurant. So we believe that if we could achieve that, and also using only local Bolivian ingredients, we could send a message, and not just to future chefs, but also to other people in Bolivia, other young people. There's a 30% youth unemployment rate. So there definitely is a lack of hope, and you have parents that tell you that don't dream big, it's impossible, it won't happen here, never ever. So we wanted to send that message, and also we wanted to put Bolivia on the map, because we had learned, the global map of gastronomy, also because we wanted to attract tourists that could pay for the food, and further sustain a development of the food and beverage industry in the country, eventually leading to farmers getting better prices for their farm products. So that was a strategy we opted for, and this is why we went on to something as utopian as to create a fine dining temple in the poorest capital of Latin America.
So for you then, being able to make it a school, I'm very interested in that. And I want to reflect on the school part, because the graduation scene and leading to that, clearly it was monumental. This isn't just a kid who graduated from college in what in America we understand that to be. This was coming from the jungle and putting yourself in a position like Kenzo Maria to become a sous chef, to travel to Spain and work at Mugaritz, to then go on film tour with Michael and be in Tribeca and in San Sebastian, to be able to be a part of that. I mean, that's transformation that most of us will never see in our lifetimes. And as reflecting on 2020 being one of the most transformational years that anybody living today will have experienced, I'm fascinated in that. And Maria says something, paraphrasing, that in the kitchen, right, she feels safe there, that all of their troubles kind of melt away a little bit, is what she was saying, because everything outside of the school, of the restaurant, of the kitchen melts away. Poverty, any kind of feeling other in the kitchen, you can be brilliant, right? And even Camilla sitting and critiquing the dish and giving that feedback, you could see that there was that importance of the mentorship. Again, that guide theme coming up again and again. So touch on that a little bit, the transformation from the human side, from Kenzo and Maria especially, the importance, the impact of that.
But maybe that is, in the essence, what it's all about. I'm a big believer in the apprenticeship model, and the concept of learning from the master in a real life setting, rather than studying something on the internet or sitting on the school bench. And this particular industry that we are in are also characterized by people from all kinds of ways of life, or straits of life, how they can eventually find a space in the kitchen and leave all their the troubles they might have been into in their past life behind, and just really find themselves within the culinary crafts. And then I believe, I haven't tried this before, but I just imagine that even though you are living in a very poor country, you still have knives, and you have fire, and you have ice, and you have ingredients. So nothing really prevents you from cooking the best food in the world, apart from a few tricks you have to get up under your sleeve. So I saw this as an incredible opportunity for people to grow fast in their lives, and build character. So we were building their character, and we were building their professional skills. And now the students that rose to the occasion, now they are building future students, both in our slum schools called Manka, that Michael didn't touch with the film, but on the side of the film we also created 12 small schools in the slums of El Alto, and there was also a beautiful relation between the students of Gustu and then the even poorer youngsters in some much less privileged school settings in the slums. So this idea of mentoring and being a source of light and hope in just maybe one other person's life is and Michael got that so right, is what it is in the essence all about. And I hope that every person who goes to the cinema will take that single thing with them back into their own lives, that if only you can be the light in one person's life, then everything is good.
I appreciate that. Michael, I want to come to you one more time before we kind of wrap up here and touch on, there was another kind of tool that you used quite a bit, was kind of the breakout conversation. Was clearly there was Claus with his daughter, there was the three fellows we mentioned, there was Camilla and Angelo, kind of these little rap sessions where like we got a little bit deeper. It was like context setting for us. Kind of why was that important? And you kind of kept pulling to those as a way to really contextualize what was happening kind of from scene to scene.
Yeah, I mean, I guess documentaries traditionally have interviews, right? So you'll have people speaking to the camera or to an interview, or whether on screen or off screen. And I mean, this goes back to kind of the narrative background part. When we started doing the film, we kind of did that initially. We had our straight to camera interviews, but what I found was there was something unsatisfying stylistically about that. And like after the first week, I was very unhappy with kind of the way that the interviews were playing, and I thought, I wanted to make this like as much like a narrative film as possible, at least aesthetically. But also, I think there was a very practical reason to it as well, because if I was going to ask Kenzo's father, for example, what were your dreams for your son, or I was going to ask Claus, what did you want to be when you grow up? I mean, there's a heavy component of family and also relationships in this film. I said, well, isn't it more interesting if they had that conversation with not some stranger asking them all these personal questions, but with a family member, or with a partner, or with a friend, or with each other? So that was kind of the strategy going in, was to have these conversations between people. And at the same time, we suspected that there might be some kind of weird alchemy that happens when these individuals have conversations with each other, because maybe Claus has never told a particular story to his daughter about his life, or maybe Kenzo has never expressed what he wants to do and why he's doing it to his father or family. So we took a chance on that, and we were actually very happy with. I mean, clearly, if you see the film, I think it worked out very well in terms of capturing some very special moments.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And with that, I want to wrap with this, Claus. I want to come back to you because kind of what you just mentioned, Michael, the interaction with you and your daughter was really powerful. And being able to reflect on your own family history, again, finding Elizabeth and Guy, that truly were finally you found a guide. And I think that now fundamentally drives you. That was very, very clear from listening to that. Your daughter, very, very astute, very much like got to, when you turn the question back on her, what do you think the challenges would be? Those were exactly the right challenges. And it was very clear that very thoughtful. So appreciated watching that. I also recognize, and I want to finish with this, the question of legacy was a little bit of a challenge for you. I could tell you labored with it a little bit, and I understand that, because you're very much an infinite thinker. That these finite goals of Noma, of even Gustu, of the accolades, of the quote unquote achievements, are hard to wrap your head around, because you have such a goal that lives way, way, way beyond you. So you have not achieved that, and taking a moment to think that, to reflect on your achievements, kind of takes away from the bigger vision. And so you took it to being a role model, a guide, making sure that your daughter knew that you loved her. legacy. I want to ask you the question again, legacy, as you think and reflect upon that, maybe broadly, maybe personally. And then I also, as a chef and somebody who's watched your career, I'm very interested. There's a line cook in La Paz, in San Antonio, Texas, in San Sebastian, or in Tokyo that is needing and wanting to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, that just the transaction of just cooking the food loses that luster, and we need something bigger, a North Star to pull to, which is clearly something you're driven by. This is a long question. I apologize. I'm on soapbox.
Give me the short version.
Yeah, the short version. Legacy for you, as you reflect upon that again, legacy for you for the food world, as that is a familial thing for you. The food world, the legacy you want to leave for the food world.
So that is super difficult. I just want to give Michael a compliment before I try to, jump onto your question. Because actually, Michael, you are so right. I mean, the setting you created, or the conversation you created with my youngest daughter, actually, I mean, not that I had at all in any way a bad. I mean, I think the picture tells we had a great relation already, but somehow in between not only her but also my other daughters, it has given this conversation, the question that was asked, the way they were asked, it has given an incredible depth to our relationship, and a deep kind of sense of love and mutual understanding about the bigger picture and what is important in life and what counts. And so I will be forever grateful for that very special moment. You are the reason behind in my personal life.
That means a lot. That's great.
Legacy. I'm probably not answering the question, but I think being a human, being a human is about, and growing up is about hospitality in the largest sense of the word. I mean, to assume responsibility for other people in the communities within which you operate, either be a source of progress and hope and growth for few people or for more people, to explore how you can be that light. I will reuse the word light. So I never think about before that question was asked, what is legacy? I mean, I never think about it. But I do want to, as long as I live and am fresh, I want to be as much. I want to be a friend and an element of strength in the life of the people I come across, and I insist on living my life spontaneously. I didn't call up Michael. I didn't even think about a documentary film. But the moment Michael showed up at my doorstep, I said, "How can I be of service?" So maybe that is, if I can be a living example of the concept of being of service to other people, even though you don't know them or live with them or are part of their family. If I can be an example of the concept of being of service, and meet other people with love, also strangers. I mean that is, I guess that is important, and that will be enough.
That is exactly what we need. Yeah, please, Michael.
I was just wanted to return the favor of Klaus's compliment and say, I mean, I have expressed this. I hope I've expressed this to you before, but I mean, like Klaus said, he didn't ask to do the documentary, but the component of it was I ate at the restaurant, and immediately you could feel the love of the project in the DNA. And if it was just a story about a restaurant, it would have not compelled me. But the fact that this extraordinary thing was happening on a very human level, it compelled me in a way that I think few things have in my life. I mean, I think people like films take so long to make. This film took about 5 years to make. And it's really hard to find something where you say, I'm going to be willing to dedicate. I didn't know it was going to take 5 years, but even the next 2 years of my life to do this. But because of that human element and of that inspirational quality, it really, I wouldn't have been able to do it without the support of someone like Claus, and he was so open immediately when it came to be. And also in terms of, I was very young when I started making the film, and what Claus presented as an individual, and this is to say he is doing what he is saying he wants to do, which is show people that through action you can be a positive force in the world around you. I think I learned a lot of that from him, and I will be forever grateful for having that sense of responsibility as a human being to the world around me, because of what I saw him do, and just being around him and his projects and his family. So thank you for that, Claus.
Another beautiful human moment. I appreciate both of you, storytellers, communicators at your core. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I hope, big takeaway, that you can explore how you can be the light, how you can be a friend, how you can be an element of strength, how you can be of service. I think that is the calling that Claus has laid down for all of us, that Michael has so beautifully captured. And I appreciate you both for this little breakout rap session. I know that I will be forever changed by it, because the more humans we interact with, the better served we are. I absolutely believe that. And so thanks to both of you.
Thank you, Jensen.
All right, everybody, that is it. Appreciate you all. As always, cheers.